Paid versus organic content. What's the difference between the two? What is best for you? What is my opinion within my experience within the two? I've been in digital media for the last 7 years. For those of you who don't know, I've reached over 50 million people organically and over 2 million with paid advertising. So I've gotten a good amount of experience to just really understand the fundamentals between organic and paid advertising, as well as the benefits between both. So I'm going to list those down here and basically just go over a few of them and hopefully provide some value to you guys in the process. So some of the pros with paid ads, just get right into it, is you get immediate data to analyze. So as soon as you run that ad, as soon as you click publish, that ad is being sent out to prospects that you've told it to be shown to. So you're constantly getting data. And if you're the type of person that likes to analyze data and use that to determine your next move, then it can be very, very helpful and effective for you to be able to have that. So you get that immediate data. You also get much more precise targeting. So your ads are only shown to who you tell them to show it to. So especially within things like Facebook ads, with the new iOS updates, they've become a lot more restricted as to what you can target within these ads. But you can choose generally the location. You can choose the vicinity within that location if you want to target a 15-mile radius within one state or something like that. It's honestly really fascinating the ways that you can go about it. But you get that precise targeting with paid ads. Now, another thing that you get is the campaign data to give you a better direction. So that's what I was saying earlier as far as immediate data to analyze is you get that so you can decide where to take your next move. So even though you may not get as much of a reach compared to organic content, which I'm going to discuss in a little bit, you have a much higher ability to see that data because it's all in a form. This is typically what people like to see in their ads manager, and this is what a basic Facebook ads manager would look like, but it shows you exactly how much you've made and then the ROI to that, or how much you've spent, I should say, excuse me, and then the ROI directly to that. I'm not sure if you guys were just able to see that, but I'll jump over to it if so. But you get that direct ROI and that direct data to decide, all right, this ad's working. Why did this ad work? Why not? You can also do that within social media. It's just a little bit more complicated. But once you understand the key fundamentals within the algorithm, which if you check out one of my last videos, I went over some of the key fundamentals in the algorithms, that will allow you to apply that same knowledge, those same concepts to paid ads and organic content. Honestly, all the fundamentals within advertising and within social media, they really are the same whenever you break it down to the skin and bones. It's just identifying what works for you and what fundamentals you can apply across all of your marketing to bring in the best results. So typically for paid advertising, it's really most impactful when you have a direct offer and a sales funnel set up. So instead of just running ads randomly, which is why I actually added this tip here, which is to never boost a post. Intent is so important, and boosting your post completely gets rid of the intent behind it. I've heard so many people say that, yeah, I've tried paid ads before, and then that's what they've done is just boosted a post. And that's okay because that's what they want to do is make it as easily accessible as possible to you to run paid ads. But when you click that boost button, all you're really doing is giving the platform access to spend your money and just kind of run an ad as is. There's no intent behind it, which is why I wrote intent is so important because it is. You have to have intent behind why you're running this ad, how you're going to run that ad, how you're going to analyze it, what your next steps are. You have to think about these things, especially when you're running paid ads because you're paying for it. You're putting your money into these ads, and if you're not properly analyzing them, then you're literally just burning it. And that's business 101 as far as how to not run a successful one. So now let's get into some of the cons of paid ads. Now, some of these are pretty general, but it honestly doesn't need to be any more straightforward than this. And that's it can feel inauthentic coming from a sponsored post. When you boost a post, when you run an ad, when someone gets that ad on your feed, as natural as you can make it seem, and I've even come across ads where I've had to do a double take and like, oh wow, that actually was an ad, that wasn't a regular post. The reason why my cat just jumped up on my desk. Say hi to everybody. But that can feel inauthentic. It can absolutely feel inauthentic to some because that's sponsored, like, oh, they paid for this. This isn't even what's showing up in my natural feed. It can also be expensive if it's not done properly. So if you're just, again, running ads with absolutely no intent, then it can get very, very expensive. Depending, there's also down to the daily budgets that you put on the ads. Everything plays into it. That just goes back to the importance of intent. So it can get very, very expensive if you don't do it properly. And it's not as simple as just publishing an image with a caption. It really is not that simple. A lot of people, again, that boost button, they think they've got the picture, the caption, and they're all good. But in reality, there's so much more that goes into that, which I've added a few things here. The intent of the ad, the copywriting, recording, how that looks, the editing, making sure that the campaign is set up properly, making sure that you're analyzing the data properly. All of this plays into it. And another thing on top of that is, this is the biggest of them all, honestly, in my opinion. As soon as you turn off the ad, all of the traffic that you've been generating stops right there. You've got your ad running, you turn off the ad, boom, done. There's no more traffic coming in. So you don't have really any viable source that can bring you sales even while you're sleeping. I know that ads are running all the time, but again, content is always out there. It's always active and showing up on people's feed 24/7. I don't want to get too much into it, but there's some real differences, especially in the current way that social media is operating between paid advertising and organic content. We're entering a different era where organic content is king. Organic content is 10 times more powerful than paid advertising if done right. My cat keeps trying to go on my desk, so excuse me. But it really, again, we're entering a time where organic content is crucial because you're building a brand. You're building a brand that people are going to memorize. And I'm going to go into this even more. I created this little graph here that kind of explains everything that I had just mentioned. But you've got your ad, it's got the sponsored on it. There's limited reach. You're also selling immediately. That's another thing too with paid ads, is you're trying to get them to click into it to do something. If it's just an engagement style ad, then that might not be the case. But most of the time, if you're running an ad, it's to get someone to click into an offer or to click into something. So it can come across as less authentic, as I had mentioned before, and it has to go through this paywall, which is your money, to get to the prospect. And the second that you decide you don't want to put your money into it, your ad is no longer being delivered to this prospect. So it really is crucial that you are paying attention to these things. So that's where we get into the pros and cons of organic social media growth. So one of the biggest things with organic social media growth is you're building an established brand with content that never goes away. This is the coolest part about it, is it's infinite. The second you create that content, the second the words have come out of your mouth and you've clicked post, it never goes away. There's no shutting down. The only way that you shut down the campaign, as I mentioned with paid advertising, is if you delete the post, which you wouldn't delete the post if it's performing well. It's really cool. And if it starts performing well, you're not paying for it to perform well. But it really comes down to the volume, because with paid ads, when you're paying for them, you're paying for the reach that you're getting. But you're not paying for any reach. What you're doing with organic content is you're figuring out, how can I reach the most people without having to pay for it? And there's so many little details within that, within the algorithm, like I had mentioned, within the type of content that you're posting, that will determine that. So it's really important to pay attention to these things again. But this is another really big part of it, is with paid ads, it's when you're paying for it, that is when the ad is running. You can choose when you want them specifically to run, but generally when you're paying for the ad is running. With content, even if you post something that only gets a view, 10 views, 15 views, if it gets no views, it might get 1 million in a month. It might get 1 million in a year. You can't pinpoint the virality of a video until you've given it the time to perform, until you've given the algorithm time to analyze it and decide, is this a valuable piece of content? Because that's another thing too. Sometimes the food that you're feeding the algorithm to determine whether or not it's a high or low quality piece of content, which likes, shares, comments, saves, everything, if you aren't getting enough of that right off the bat, the algorithm isn't really going to be able to notice as much as if it's a high quality piece of content. Whereas in a week, say, you get a couple pieces of engagement, that shows it to the algorithm looks at it. You get what I'm saying? It takes time, but it can happen at any moment. And that's the beauty of content, is that any moment could mean you're getting 10,000 views. It could also mean you're getting 1 million views. You really don't know. But the ROI to that, when you do it effectively, when you create effective content that communicates what you're trying to communicate to your prospects, why you started your brand in the first place, the ROI is simply infinite. There's no way, there's no point in measuring it because, like I said, it never goes away. So another thing too, because I wanted to touch on the authenticity versus inauthenticity, as I mentioned in paid advertising. Paid ads, since there's that sponsored post, it can come across as inauthentic. People might say, like this is an ad, like you're targeting me to sell me something, obviously. So they might not want to engage with it more. And if your goal is to build that loyal audience, that might not be the best route for you to go. But if you're creating content consistently and you're always showing up on your prospect's feed, then you're going to be able to establish an authentic connection between you and the viewer, because that's what was recommended to them. As I said here, it's recommended based on what they have already viewed. And I understand that paid ads, it's obviously you're targeting those people based on their engagement, but it's still a paid ad. This is all natural. This is all organic. And when something happens naturally, it is more authentic. People, they feed into it more because it feels like it was more for a reason, if that makes sense. So when you're consistently showing up on their feed, you're consistently building an authentic connection between you and that viewer. So again, even if you stop posting, this is another thing I wanted to mention, even if you stop posting and create a new account, one of the videos on your old account can still go viral a month later. That's an infinite ROI. There's no way to track. There's no point in tracking that, because you're going to be generating so much more than just sales and just those numbers. When you add a conversion mechanism to the content that you're putting out, which could be a Facebook community that you then lead to your offer, there could be many different ways to go about that. It could be a webinar, as you've seen. If you add that, then you can have that measurable, all right, this is the revenue that I'm generating. But what is the ROI on building a brand of people that are loyal to the message that you're putting out, people that trust you, people that engage with your content, that share your content? What's the ROI of that? I think it's infinite personally. So I really wanted to visualize the ROI of content for you guys, because I can totally get it being difficult to see it just by looking at the views and likes that you're getting as to how it's actually impacting your business. But if you attach a conversion mechanism to the content that you're putting out, where you have an offer that you've created that you're trying to push, and you're using your content to get people to that offer, then it actually can have a direct ROI. So for example, in this video, it got 12.2 thousand likes, not even counting the views. It got 12.2 thousand likes. If we just go based on that, if 5% of those 12.2 thousand people join your community after seeing an effective CTA that you used in your video, that's 610 new members, 610 people that are joining your community directly. Those are now warm leads that you can add more value to and entice them to get on a sales call with you. But say out of those 610 members, you only get 5% of them to hop on a sales call. Then you take that 5%, that's 30 sales calls. 30 sales calls from one video, the likes that came in from one video. Take that 30 sales calls. If you have a 20% close rate, that's 6 sales. So depending on your offer, obviously the amount that you would make from that's going to be different, but that's 6 sales that you can generate actually from one piece of content, one video. And this goes for every piece of content that you put out. You have the chance to do this on every single piece of content that you put out. But the more consistent that you are, the more that you build your brand up, and the more that you stack these levels of authenticity and credibility, the more that these numbers are going to go up, and the more chances that you're going to get a viral video to go out. So I hope that this visualizes just the impact and how powerful ROI can be. But let's get right back into the document. And that's why organic social media can be so powerful. But there's still cons. There's still cons that we haven't even discussed that let's go into right now. So again, and I've already touched on a few of these, but with organic social media, since it's organic, and what determines whether or not you grow is if you can pay attention to the fundamentals of what the algorithm wants, it can be a little bit unpredictable and growth can vary. Sometimes you may have one video that just blows up, and if you don't understand what makes a video go viral, you're going to have absolutely no clue on how to predict that in the future. See, that's the thing, is when you do things without intent, it's unpredictable. But when you do things with educated intent, it can become predictable. And that's the goal. That's always the goal with social media, is to create a predictable strategy. You want to be able to, this is what's working. I'm going to lean into this more, and this is what's going to 2, 3, 4, 5x my brand, which will in turn, it'll 2, 3, 4, 5x your loyal following and your monthly recurring revenue. It's all a collateral butterfly effect, and it's a beautiful thing when done right. But again, can be difficult to measure the ROI, and you must understand how social media algorithm works. Those are the two things that I just mentioned right there. But if you can do those things, there really are no cons to organic social media. It's just time, putting in the effort, posting the videos, posting the content that you want to post, and then you'll be able to create that brand that you've wanted to create since the reason you started your social media, right? So again, another thing I wanted to mention, a big difference between paid ads and organic content. There's steps required. You have to do things a certain way to create a positive direct ROI within ads. But with organic content, you just got to put out value. You just have to put out value. The more value you put out, the more you'll start to understand what works, what people respond more to, what type of content you like creating more. And then over time, the more consistent that you are with that plan, the more that it'll all start to reveal itself. And then you'll be able to create the perfect strategy that you'll be able to implement. And then you can pump out content 10 times as fast. It'll all just be so much less of a headache. So in the initial stages, it's a lot more difficult to do because, again, you don't have that data, you don't have that audience, you don't know what type of content they're going to respond to best. And you might know that. And if you do, it's really just understanding why and how you can lean into it and make it even better. And that is so crucial. So again, you don't need to have required steps, step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how you create a successful page. It's figuring out what works for you and applying the fundamentals that are across every social media, regardless of the one that you're on. If you can understand those things, it becomes a lot more simple. And I created another graph just to explain organic content. Infinite ROI, authenticity, it's cost effective. And you notice how there's no paywall here? Because it's just you putting out value. Honestly, I should have put value, because that's what's going to get to your prospect, is if you're genuinely providing value to them. And that's honestly what's become very, very popular in social media now. So many people have found a cool way to edit, and they found so many different systems and frameworks. But what it really comes down to is being able to provide value. You know, you see on YouTube, I feel like there's been phases. And the first phase was the guru, where everyone's like, I can promise you the world, I can do this, I can do that. And then the second phase was the transparent guru, where they showed you everything and they were just very transparent about what they were doing. But there's always been one missing factor. And I think this is the third phase that we're going to start seeing, and I've already been seeing more of, and it's authenticity. It's people that genuinely want to impact lives and genuinely want to help others. I mean, the more that these types of gurus and transparent gurus, as I just mentioned, come out, the more that people are going to become accustomed to that, and the more that you're going to have to figure out how to differentiate yourself. And I think that the way that people are going to differentiate themselves in the future on social media is by being authentic and just putting their selves forward. So if you're growing your brand on social media and you would like some more tips and have everything organized, I created a ebook called The Audience Growth Catalyst, which you can find for free inside of my Facebook community, which is also free to join. But there is a lot more information in there, including everything that I had just mentioned, that will really help you grow your brand and reach 2, 3, 4, 5 times more people. But once again, thank you so much for watching this. If you stayed here until the end, I wish you all the success, and I will see you in the next video. Love you guys.